I'm going to sit down actually while I give mine. It's easier. All right, so I am not an urban planner, nor am I a historian. I understand movements well, though, and I believe Indianapolis has the ability to shape the fashion industry's next move, and I believe that we, through fashion, have the ability to shape the next stage of our city's economic and aesthetic maturation. The language of fashion is often perverted by our obsession and hyper-focusing on the dimensions and sizes of individual people rather than discussing the dimensions of the group as a whole. Between tabloid scribblings and celebrity designers, we've obliterated the space between what is truly fashionable and who is merely dressed fashionably. Indianapolis is a city bereft of gossip column regulars and haute couture houses, but it's actually ahead of the curve in this regard, I think. We haven't had the opportunity to cloud our vision with the socialite pandering and pantless pop stars and all that stuff. So this clarity gives our city the potential to lead as fashion's populist vanguard. And with Pattern, I believe Indianapolis has the chance to actualize this community-driven movement. And for those of you that don't know what Pattern is, I will get to that here in a moment. So if you walk around Indy, especially in the more stereotypically, artistically inclined neighborhoods like Fountain Square and Broad Ripple, it can be slightly depressing to see the pervasive hipster-styled stagnation that has gripped our 20-somethings. But they do have to grow up. We do, I am one of them, have to grow up. And ironic mustaches and faux vintage flannel and liquid tight-fitting denim will not, fingers crossed, survive until their 30s. And I mean, at least we've gotten rid of the Von Dutch trucker hats and Ugg boots as formal wear thing. So, if you walk around, the gallery openings on a first Friday and filter out the aforementioned non-fashion fashions, you'll see people dressed in a way that does offer a glimmer of hope for our city's sartorial future. It is there. You just have to squint a little bit to see it sometimes. There are people that dress fancifully, and they dress meticulously, and they dress outlandishly, but with no irony involved. For men, whether it's a bow tie, suspenders, bowler hats, or pocket squares, there's ample room to dress up in a way that is self-aware without simultaneously being self-deprecating. Irony, it poisons all honest creativity, and it really deprives us from any deep sense of enjoyment, whether that's in the moment or long-term. David Foster Wallace described what he called the tyranny of irony as a mode of thinking that serves an almost exclusively negative function. It is critical, destructive, and ground-clearing, but is singularly unuseful when it comes to constructing anything to replace what it debunks. And this destructive tendency, which I admit seeps into my conversations every time I can't think of a witty response or an adequate answer to a question. I do it all the time. But this destructive tendency is part of what has kept Indianapolis from helming this populist fashion movement. I mean, I couldn't even start this talk without nailing the usual villains, whether it's pop stars, hipsters, LL Beans, suburbanites, whatever. But that language is not only useless, but it is completely contradictory to the future I see Indianapolis moving toward. And that's where Pattern comes in. There we go, sorry, not good with the clicker. So, for those of you that are unfamiliar, Pattern is the new manifestation of what was formerly called the Indianapolis Fashion Collective. And the collective was started some years ago by a group of really delightful dreamers who envisioned it as a resource where our city's fashion-thinking denizens could come for really anything and everything. And as with most dreams, reality can pretty quickly turn those unfulfilled aspirations into kind of a bitterly nostalgic memories. But that's not what they chose to do. They didn't want to sit around, lamenting their lack of luck and licking their very stylish wounds. Instead, they decided that the organization needed to undergo a very strategic, transformative surgery, a kind of identity-altering metamorphosis. And with the help of K+A and a few new board members, of which I am one of them, we kind of dismantled the old model and began building something new. And this was something that could move and flex and grow. And we forced ourselves to discard this ironically disparaging facetiousness. Well, not fully discard it. I still use a lot of it. But yeah, and try to construct an inclusive, fashion-focused community. And we started with the simple thought that we didn't need to convince the city that fashion was good for the economy, because that's a given. We need to convince them that enough people in Indiana care about fashion, and there are enough. The mission of this endeavor was to create a place for fashion within Indianapolis, so a place that has a uniquely Indiana flavor but isn't settling for any cliched Midwestern status quo. As we began working through what pattern would look like, we realized that its struggles mirrored those of the city of Indianapolis. We needed to build a community where people felt free to critique without alienating, a place where people felt safe and yet incredibly challenged, an enclave of sorts where people felt they were a part of something unique without putting up any exclusive barriers to newcomers or people with divergent tastes or tastes you plain just don't like. A place where people were intertwined by a common goal, and yet still able to exercise their individuality. And importantly, a place devoid of the kind of manic confidence and arrogance that comes with the fashion industry. So as we worked through it, we realized that individual growth is something that is magnified when it sees itself mirrored in a vibrant community, allowing ideas to organically take root, whether it's generally or individually. So to build this community, founded on the idea that fashion is a necessary element of Indianapolis growth, we needed funding. And then we realized that we more specifically needed all of the accoutrements that come with being a funded organization. The actual touchable, tangible cash was not as necessary as long as we could function as if we had it. Yeah. That's no fraud involved there. That is merely saying we work with local organizations who are able to help us out. So, to get funded, you've got to be seen. To be seen, you have to have a community, and to develop a community, it had to be free. And so with the aid of a diverse array of supporters, like Sun King, Mass Ave Wine Shop, iMocha, French Pharmacy, Hayes and Taylor, K+A, and just countless others, I mean, all sorts of amazing organizations that have allowed us to function as a funded organization with their help. Yeah, we've been able to work alongside our corresponding communities like Verge. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of it, but it is a phenomenal tech startup focus group that is just, I mean, it is just blown up in the past year. It's amazing. And yeah, through this we've been able to begin reshaping the discussion between both the consumers and creators and just the lovers of fashion in Indianapolis. So as we continue forward, Pattern seeks to grow within the already existing city structure. We're not wanting to start our own separate entity, but grow within it and help propel movement from the inside out, kind of pushing and swelling and expanding Indy's creative class from within. So Pattern seeks to be a part of that active catalyst in the fashion equation of Indianapolis that keeps the movement moving. That's all. Thank you.